Welcome to Law Subscribed. This is your dedicated news source for all things subscriptions in the law. My name is Matthew Kurbis. I'm the subscription attorney, and I believe subscriptions can help bridge the access to justice gap and incentivize attorneys to modernize and scale their practice like never before. On this show, I interview lawyers ditching the billable hour and experts who can help attorneys move beyond billing time. Thanks to my sponsors, 650 and Gavel. Links to both in the show notes. More on them later, and use the code LAWSubscribed when signing up. You get 10% off, and it supports the show. The best way to support the show is to share it with someone you know. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only, and nothing said is legal, ethical, or financial advice. Without further delay, here's the episode. I'm thrilled to have with me today Scott Simmons. Welcome to the Law Subscribed podcast.
Good to be here, Matthew. Thanks for having me.
So we got introduced through LinkedIn, through some mutual connections, and I've come to discover in our quick pre-show chat, we have even more connections, which is great. But just in case my audience hasn't come across your stuff yet, Scott, go ahead and give yourself a little introduction.
Thank you. So, Matthew, when I describe myself, I tell people that I'm a toolbox for turning lawyers into rainmakers. That's how I describe myself. If I go to a networking event, what do you do? Who are you? I say I'm Scott, and I'm a toolbox for turning lawyers into rainmakers. And how I do that is I give lawyers the tips, tools, and techniques to get out into the marketplace, give best advice, and win more work from better clients. So I coach clients on subjects around leadership, mindset, culture, habits. I, train lawyers on how to sell and cross-sell, how to give presentations that other lawyers are jealous of, and, and how to network confidently. And then I consult for law firms on how to put together firm-wide business development strategies that they can then take out to the market and help them build organically as the foundation for the future.
And just to clarify too, because I don't think you mentioned it, like you yourself, you're a recovering lawyer, right?
Yeah, right. So interesting. I know that so many lawyers say that, recovering lawyer. I kind of hate that kind of language. I really do, because I think what we do is incredible. And I'm sure we will talk about that in a bit, but I think what we do is incredible. I don't think it's, I don't think it's the job that's bad. I don't think it's lawyers that are bad. I think it's the situation that we kind of end up finding ourselves in that almost drags some lawyers down. But the narrative around lawyers, I write about it all the time. I think what we do is absolutely fantastic. And I think our job, I think we don't tell that to people enough. And we need to be doing that a lot more. And like I say, I think we'll talk about that a bit more. But yeah, I used to be a practicing lawyer. I left at the end of 2012, I believe. I suffered quite bad burnout. I wasn't particularly well. It wasn't handled brilliantly where I was. And so I got the opportunity. I got loads of opportunities because of the way that I worked, and because my focus was always so heavily on business development. I got a lot of opportunities to just focus in on business development, which is how we then started up LegalBalance. And that's what I've been doing ever since.
Let's go into that then, the whole recovering lawyer thing and the burnout. I think it's related. So you said you were burned out. Were you billing hours? Is that what you had to do?
Surprise. So, right. So I suppose if we go back to the beginning, at the very, very beginning of my career, I worked at a small high street and, very, very local, but I had the most wonderful head of department and mentor who instilled into me this sense of the clients are most important. You have to look after the clients. You have to give them great service. But the thing was that he was ill a lot. On average, out of the office 2 days a week with stress-related stomach problems. And but he was just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And so I went into the department to help out with that. It was residential conveyancing, it was real estate. And what I quickly discovered, I was in my early 20s, no real responsibilities. If you wanted me to work as late as you wanted, I'm happy to do it. But what I quickly discovered was that I could see why he was becoming ill. And it was because we were doing fantastic work, really trying our best for our clients, really, really low fees. So in order to hit target each month, we'd have to do loads of completions, have to do loads of closes. And it was just so difficult. And then if he was away 2 days a week, not only would he be coming in at the weekend to sort of make up, but we would be fighting fires because I'd be doing my own work and his work and really fighting a lot of fires. And what I realized was that we had the power to change this situation. We'd fallen into that trap of believing that we were in this race to the bottom, that there was no way out of it. It was just a case of if they lowered their fee, we were lowering our fee. And if we were lowering our fee, they were lowering. And it was just this race to the bottom. And I realized that we were in control of this. Mm-hmm. We had to do something about it. So I went and spoke to loads of different stakeholders, from clients to estate agents, mortgage brokers, bankers, accountants, anyone who would be involved. And I talked it through with them, and I came up with a not revolutionary idea of cutting out the bottom end of the market, the lowest value properties, and massively increasing our prices everywhere else, and then focusing every single conversation on why we charge what we do, why what we do is so valuable to people. And that was going to be the way that we were going to deal with everybody. So we spoke to estate agents about it, and we said to them, we're not going to take on as much work, which means we can prioritize these clients, give them great value, remembering that when you buy a house, it's probably the largest investment you'll ever make for most people. So you want to make sure you get it right. And so the fewer transactions we're working on, the better we can deal with every transaction that we do work on. And everybody loved it. And so my boss then put me in front of, so I took it to my boss then put me in front of the partnership. The partnership said, yeah, give it a go, see what happens. And within 12, 18 months, we'd completely transformed everything. Client complaints dropped through the floor, great, we were getting reviews going through the roof. Our reputation had gone from being very local to being so much bigger, to being really beyond regional. It was recommendations coming from everywhere. But the key thing for me, my boss had done bigger fees doing 50% less work. I was doing fees that I'd only just at that point started my training contract. But the thing for me was that my boss wasn't ill anymore. That was the biggest thing for me. I realized that if you did it right, and people understood the value of what you were doing, you could give clients what they wanted, and you could get paid a fair price for the work that you were doing for them. And that stuck with me for a very, very long time. And as I moved firms, I came in and out of the billable hour. So sometimes I was doing more billable hour work, other times I wasn't. And where I ended up, I was doing a lot of billable hour work, and I was working on a transaction that was supposed to last for 3 weeks, and it went on for 3 months. And it was 3 months of just kind of really late nights and very early mornings and no support anywhere. And then when I needed time off, I wasn't given it. But I found myself in a place where I couldn't concentrate. I could barely see. And getting up in the morning was just like, it felt impossible.
I have a great segue for that based on what you're talking about, but a few digressions first. First of all, love the diction of residential conveyancing. What phenomenal word choice from attorney from across the pond, because here we just call them residential real estate closings, but residential conveyancing. Oh man, that is so good. Love it. And also, I just want to remind my listeners that if you want to watch the videos, you go to lawsubscribe.com, subscribe. It's powered through Substack. You'll see the cool art hanging behind Scott right now. Scott, I have to know because I'm looking at it. Well, first of all, is that Arnold? Like, who is that? Who? It looks a little bit like Arnold Schwarzenegger, so I'm not sure though. Because
so I need to see who you see. Right, I think you're seeing Harvey Dent from Batman, from The Dark Knight.
Oh, is that who I'm seeing? Yes, I can see that now. Yeah, right. Yeah, I think so.
So that is, so obviously, sort of big. I'm a big Batman fan, and that was a limited edition. As you move across, it's one of the, I can't remember what they're called, but as you move across, it changes. So as you move across it goes from Batman to the Joker to Harvey Dent, and
he's holding a coin. or something. He
Yeah,
must
so
be.
Harvey Dent's holding a coin.
Yeah.
The Joker is holding a card with Batman on it. And Batman's holding.
Batarang.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. So that is like almost my pride and joy. At home, I've got a figurine that's, I don't know how big it is, but it's quite large, of Michael Keaton's Batman,
Yeah.
which I grew up on. So I'm like, and it comes with all of the utility belt and all the things on it. And you can, like, I'm a 40-plus-year-old man, and I'm more into that figurine than my own kids are. And on that side, so obviously I live now in Gibraltar, which is at the bottom of Central Europe, and that's a painting, a representation of the Rock of Gibraltar.
Yeah. It looks kind of like some AI art you see these days, but I'm assuming it was before the AI art then?
It was, yes. That painting is, where are we? That painting is, I think, about 14 years old.
Yeah. I've got, I mean, I don't know, maybe I have to make this for the paid subscribers only section, but in my, outside my recording studio in my office, I've got an old thing that used to hang in my room when I was a child from Batman Returns, where it's the bat, the cat, and the penguin. Like, and it's like a circular thing where like Batman's, the ears on Batman's helmet are like coming up off of the circle a little bit. Yeah. So I've got some old memorabilia too.
So we can have this chat when we go off air.
Yeah, exactly. So getting back into the reason why people tune in is I think it's important, and I'm so glad you shared your experience there, because first of all, it's related to what you do, but also I think it goes back to this recovering lawyer status, which getting back into the meat of it here, everything that you just talked about, your experience, I think is why the whole recovering lawyer term even exists. I agree that I think it's terrible, but when you're experiencing that kind of burnout and you find a way out of that burnout and it's not practicing law, I think that's where it comes from. Yeah. And that one of the reasons I even have this podcast is to show their lawyers that, well, certainly if you're very good at something like you are with business development, like you could do something legitimate in the profession and it's not practicing law, but you could still practice law and you don't have to bill your time anymore. And another connection that we have is Alistair Wells, who is this a lawyer who's not billing their time. Oh, did I lose you again? Oh, no, I didn't. Okay, you're just very still.
Yeah, I'm really into it.
Okay. Alistair Wells, who you're working with, who's been on the show, who's not billing their time. So you are living an example of this with at least one of your clients. So tell us about everything, in all of your experience and what you're doing. What are some lawyers like Alistair that you're seeing who are able to avoid this burnout?
Right. So I think what's really interesting, and again, I've listened to a number of the, your episodes, and they are brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I really enjoyed listening to the different experiences that people have. And again, I'm sure we'll come on to AI, but I think we're at that stage, aren't we, for a lot of lawyers where, I think particularly with social media, when I was starting out in law, it was big law or bust. There was no support for you if you were not trying to get to a big law firm. And I think social media and access to all that kind of information and has really helped young lawyers, not just young lawyers, by the way, lawyers throughout their career, redefine what they want to be as a lawyer and realize that there are so many different avenues and so many different ways of going about it. And the only thing really that stops you from achieving any of these things is what's going on in your own mind, what your own mind tells you you can and cannot do. And I think the reason that so many lawyers hang on to the billable hour is because that's the only thing they've ever known. When you were at law school or whatever, that was the only business model that was talked about. Lawyers sell their time. What a horrendous thing to tell. Well, you're going to spend all these years learning, but what it comes down to is essentially the longer it takes you to do something, the better off you're going to be. And we have the audacity to say that we work in our clients' best interests. The minute you go, oh, but hold on a second, if I work slower, I'll get paid more. But somehow that's in our client's best interest, because if I look at the same document 6 times, surely the client's better off than if with all my years of experience, know-how, and having drafted these documents before, I've got 4 hours to fill. I'll fill them reading that document 3 more times because somehow that's it. And there's so much opportunity out there. And with all of this, things like value-based pricing, alternative fee arrangements, but the one I love, value-based pricing and subscription models. I never realized, by the way, when we were doing that at the beginning of my career, and because that's essentially what we did. We had the sort of guide price, but no 2 clients were paying exactly the same amount because we got to know the client and we kind of knew that, okay, well, this client's going to want a bit more hand holding, so we will up the price a little bit. But I never realized that was value pricing. But it was only over the last number of years since I've met the likes of John Chisholm and come across Ron Baker and people like that I understood that that's what it was that I'd been practicing and preaching. And once I had that foundation to it, all of these things just became real opportunities and possibilities for lawyers who would be so desperate to get away from the billable hour and not have any idea how to do it. And all of this time I've spent with some amazing, incredible people in those alternative fee arrangements and those alternative business models, the world opens up to lawyers. You can offer a completely different way of doing what you do. And none of it has to be based around the amount of time you spend doing something.
And for what it's worth, when you're no longer billing your time, doing business development becomes a heck of a lot easier to fit into your schedule, right?
Okay, so here's that's such a good point, right? So if you've got to bill 7 hours a day, okay, the chances are that you're probably working 10, 11, maybe 12 hours just to get those 7 hours done. Because the reality is that we all need to go to the toilet, we all need to eat, we all need some kind of human interaction because we're human beings. We all need a bit of thinking time. We all need a bit of adjustment between pieces of work. There's so many things. We've all got, there's admin around it that we simply can't charge for, but needs to get done. But the minute you say that's chargeable work, ultimately everything revolves around it. So your KPIs, the number one KPI is how many hours have you billed? It's not how much work have you brought in, because ultimately you may not do all of the work. Your colleague might do it. And if the number one KPI is how many hours have you billed, well, that colleague's going to get all the credit for doing the work and you will get none for winning the work. And there is a complete mindset around all of this that is impacted. The minute you move away from billing time, that shift becomes so significant because you don't need to read that document 6 times. You know that you go through it once, and then you go through it a second time to check what you've done. That's with the amount of experience that you have over time. You should not need really to go through that document the first time for the first draft and then the second one just to check through. You shouldn't need to do it. So you are motivated to get the work done more quickly. And all of a sudden, you've got loads of hours in the day in which to do things like business development, because you also have to remember that the work that's put in front of you might keep the lights on, but it doesn't get you the next piece of work. All of those other things around business development, and business development is very broad, by the way, but it's all those other things that you do. That's what grows your business. And when you're not bound by that, by billable hours, you can achieve so much more.
So much of, like you said, business development is not just one thing, but a lot of what lawyers think of, in particular, billing time lawyers, who they think, I get one bite at this apple, for this client matter or for this client. I got to bill as many hours as I can on this thing. They're only thinking of getting that new client all the time. And then their marketing funnels and everything is all around, like, I get one bite at the apple. But you talk about something that I think is really useful for lawyers who are using alternative fee arrangements, especially subscription, which is cross-selling and upselling. I mean, in particular with the subscription model, upselling it almost is obvious, because if you have a tiered structure, tier 1, 2, 3, you get a client in on 1 or 2, you can upsell them to 2 or 3, right? So like it's kind of there. And it works in the billable hour space too if you get a general counsel as a client or something like that. So we get that. But for my audience who hasn't come across these materials before, tell us how you teach lawyers about the importance of cross-selling and upselling.
Okay. So the beautiful thing about subscriptions is that your interactions and well, your relationship with your client becomes relational. Okay. It's to do with really embedding yourself and getting to know the client and growing with the client and helping the client to grow. When you are under the billable hour, and I suppose, even to a certain extent under value-based pricing, it's still quite transactional because you're looking at things sort of almost one thing at a time. Whereas what we should be doing all the time with clients, whether it's under the subscription model or whether it's under value-based pricing, is you should be looking at everything that your client needs, their goals, their challenges. What is it that the client wants to achieve in the next 12, 24, 36 months, 5 years that you can help them with? And the key part with, I suppose, cross-selling is, let's say, for example, you're a corporate lawyer, you've just completed on a transaction and you prepare a 100 days report. All those things have got to be taken care of by the buyer within the first 100 days. Okay. Well, you're not going to do everything, but your colleagues in other practice areas might do. And yet what I see and have always seen throughout my entire career, that 100 days report goes in and then everyone just kind of sits back. The deal's done. Well, the client will come to us if they want to get any of that stuff done. But why? You're adding value by getting those things done in that 100 days report. You're adding huge amounts of value to the client. Otherwise, there'd be no point in that report. These are things that need to get done that will improve the business, will improve, what you have bought. So, but you're looking around your business and you're going, well, who can do that? Who can I get to do that? And who can I get to do that? But you're then looking at it and going, well, there are other things. There might be tax advice. There might be loads of other things. There might be banking that might not necessarily need a lawyer, might need somebody else. And now you're cross-selling into other industries, into other contacts, and you're bringing people into the process. And you're saying to them, hey, look, I've got clients here who need your help. You can help them get better results by getting this stuff done. So I'm going to introduce you to them. Okay, that works beautifully. And the client's happy because these things are off their desk. And a part of big part of what they're paying lawyers for is to get these things off their desks so they can get on with just running their business. Right? Now, you come to upselling and you're absolutely right. Okay, upselling is, we've done X amount of work for you, but now things are growing and we should be doing this, a Y amount of work. And yes, it's going to cost more money, but it's going to give you this, it's going to add this much value to you. And we never have those conversations. We sit back. We're so passive still. And we're passive because we're scared of what the word selling means in our head. Okay, we look at selling and we think Jordan Belfort, Wolf of Wall Street. We think it's selling stuff to people that they don't need. And yet I say this all the time, law is the one thing in life, Matthew, you cannot get wrong. It's so fundamental to not just businesses, but individuals. If you get the law wrong, you're in serious trouble. And so we have a duty to inform clients about what they need to do, even when they don't realize they need it. And that is selling, but it's helping. It's not selling in this way that we think of it. Coffees for closers, Glengarry, Glen Ross. It's not that. It's about genuinely caring about your clients enough to want to help and give them best advice.
And it's hard to do that when your clients don't want to contact you because the clock starts, because we're waiting for those legal problems to happen. The law is so easy to get wrong, right? And so lawyers, for a lot of business development lawyers do, especially with billing time, is we wait for things to go wrong. And then we could charge a premium to fix it. And so Like this, like, so that is, and not necessarily business developers, but legal marketers. This is what they sell to lawyers. Their pain point has to be so bad that they are
Right.
willing to pay you an arm and a leg and take out a second mortgage and all that. But then that's your one bite at the apple mentality. Your ability to cross sell, your ability to upsell goes away when you've waited that long. And sure, you could help that client once, but what you were just talking about is being able to help them avoid future problems, which has value, tying us back into, your mention of value-based pricing. And there could be value in avoiding other problems for your client, right?
Okay.
When I went solo, I pivoted from mostly litigation to a transactional-only practice. I did not have a database of documents to automate. That's why a business and employment legal document database and automation tool like 650 is super useful. I can rely on the quality of the documents in 650's database since they're putting excellent legal minds to work curating and updating their documents and automations over time. When you're not billing by the hour, outsourcing and efficiency matters, and 650 can help you scale your practice to get high-quality documents drafted in less time. Use the code LAWSUBSCRIBED at 650.com and when being onboarded to get 10% off. If you're not a business and employment attorney or you have your own documents that you'd prefer to use, then my next sponsor, Gavel, is the automation tool for you. Gavel allows you to build shareable, client-facing workflow and document automations. In other words, Gavel helps you create a legal practice where attorneys can monetize the value they bring clients in productized form and scale via subscriptions and flat fees. Use the code LAWSUBSCRIBED at gavel.io to get 10% off an annual subscription. There's no one right way to automate and scale your practice, but with one or both of my sponsors, 650 and Gavel, you can take your subscription law firm to the next level. Links to both in the show notes. Now back to the show.
So there's something that I learned a number of years ago from the most incredible sales author called Anthony Iannarino. And anyone who's listening to this, if you want to understand huge amount about how sales works and how we should be thinking about it, he's like, I absolutely love Anthony Iannarino. He talks about 4 levels of value creation. And I talk about it in the BD Breakthrough Blueprint, my digital course. And, how very often, there's these 4 levels. Level 1 is, the basic service. We provide legal services and we do it without any guarantee of a level of service. Then you've got level 2. That is service, a kind of service guarantee. So we will do it, we'll provide the service and we'll provide it at a really high level, a really high standard of service. Level 3, you've got problem solvers. People who, when there's a problem or you need to get some kind of, reactive result, you go to these lawyers. But then you've got level 4, who are trusted advisors. And trusted advisors, they go further than reacting to problems. They proactively help you achieve goals and find opportunities to get best results. Now, the thing about all of these levels is that people will only accept level 1 rubbish service once before they're like, never doing that again. Then they go to level 2. Okay, so now we've got a lawyer who gives us good service, but we need somebody who can not just, who can really take things to the next level for us in terms of, we've got a big problem that needs solving. Okay, so now we go to level 3. And what happens is that level 2 always steals from level 1. Level 3 lawyers always steal from level 2. But if you are a reactive problem solver, you will only get so far with your clients, because what clients really want is to get out in front of problems. But they don't have somebody sat around their strategic decision-making table saying to them, hold on a second, this could be a problem, but if we deal with it now, it won't be. And you coming to me now and talking to me about it, we can get out in front of it. But just like with a small leaking pipe at home, because we've actually got one at the moment and it's getting worse and worse and worse. And if they'd have just dealt with it when we asked them to, it wouldn't be quite as big as it is now. And now they're going to have to pay for it more. That's the same thing. If you get out in front of these problems, if you listen to your advisor and you get them in at the earliest possible stage, that's a trusted advisor. That's somebody who will look out for you and will find innovative, not just solutions, but opportunities. And that method is absolutely vital. And that, for me, that's what I teach every lawyer they should be aiming for. Don't call yourself a problem solver, because when you call yourself a problem solver, you are tying yourself in your client's mind to a problem. You're never seen as an opportunity creator, a value creator. You are seen in light of problems, which is negative again. But just very briefly, I want to go back to your point about, clients are really careful about picking up the phone because they know they're on the clock. 100%, 100%. Every single client, when you're tied to the billable hour, every single client is thinking to themselves, is this an important enough conversation to pick up the phone to my lawyer when I know they're going to charge me for it? And I'm not even 100% sure whether or not this is even something worth discussing. The beautiful thing about subscriptions is that you have, and value-based pricing, the whole conversation's upfront. So you get to know that client, and then you get to put together a structure in the relationship where you go, call me whenever you want. That's why I'm here. That's part of this relationship. You don't have to worry that you're going to be racking up time, because we've discussed the type of relationship you want, how often you want to speak to me, the sorts of things that we're going to be dealing with, all of those things. You don't have to worry about the meter running, because that's not how this relationship works. And lawyers don't seem to get that if we want to talk about being client-centric or client-focused, clients don't think that, because the client's thinking, should I even call?
And like that level 4 that you were talking about, and in your content that's out there, Scott's got a YouTube channel. Everyone should go and subscribe, where you're talking about the blueprint. You've got it in like a pyramid shape, so like top of the pyramid, right? Like this is where subscription attorneys thrive, because that's part of the value of the subscription, right? And so that's where we need to be, and that's sort of where we naturally are. Go ahead.
So it just the thing I love about subscriptions is, again, and I know Ron Baker will have talked to you about this, is that once you're under the subscription model, everything to do with money is just off the table. It's dealt with. No one at any point is thinking on a project by project sort of basis, because everything's understood and known at the outset. And so you sit there and you go, okay, well, now we've covered all of this off. This is the relationship. This is how it's going to work. This is what you need to know. I love Ron's sort of concierge service, where, if we can do it, we will do it for including that price. I'd love to get to a point where lawyers were so comfortable and so confident that if they did corporate work, they understood their client enough that they could go, yep, we'll include any amount of corporate work in it, but there's still this kind of, well, we're not 100% sure. I love that idea. I think it's going to take a real amount of time to get to that point where it's that full concierge service. But I think when you can take that element, what does he call it? He calls it cognitive load. When you can take that element out of the conversation, so the client can just go, yeah, I need to speak to Matthew, you're going to pick up the phone. When you've got that kind of relationship, it's on such a different level to the billable hour, but it's so great for the client and it's so great for you as well. It's just magic, I think.
But here's the rub, and the rub is, and this is why I'm glad to have you on the podcast, and I've only ever really spoken about this with a legal marketer, not a legal business developer. So I'm curious to get your perspective on it. And that is, you're selling problem avoidance at that stage, right? And people, it's hard for people to buy problem avoidance, right? They do, and it's about how you frame it, right? Like, I don't become a member of Costco, if you have Costco or some equivalent, where you are, Scott, but I don't become a member of Costco because I'm solving a problem or because I want to avoid something necessarily, but it's like I'm getting a discount. So like my approach has been reframing like subscription benefits, and like one of those benefits is problem avoidance, right? And like trying to sell it that way. But in my experience now, running a firm based on the subscription model for about 2 years, is it's hard to sell problem avoidance. And I more often get people when they do have a problem that they're trying to solve. And then as I'm solving that problem for them, I'm able to convince them that it makes sense to avoid future problems like this. So like there's still like a problem. And I'm trying to figure out how the heck can I sell problem avoidance and get people to come in before they actually have a problem? And it's hard.
Right. Yeah. And I really, I do feel that, and I understand it, and I've seen it. And I think with me and how I work with my clients, you have to accept that there is a big market out there that simply won't get it. That simply won't get that until a problem has come up. That's when they will realize that actually there's problems out there that I didn't understand. Now, what I'm going to do is, now that Matthew's helped me solve this problem, I'm now going to listen to Matthew when he tells me that there are other problems out there. There's just a huge market for people out there. Why? But I do think that we are partly responsible for that, because we don't, I know that, listen, I'm not a big fan of jump straight in there with pain points and jump straight in there with negative things, but I do think that we have a duty to let people know that if you get the law wrong, you may get away with it for years. You might get away with it for years. But when the problem does arise, that problem won't just come and hit you once. It might start dating back years worth of problems that you didn't solve and now have come to the forefront. And I think we do have a responsibility to educate clients about what can happen if they don't deal with this. And after that, what they choose to do with that information. But remember, we're trying to help people. We're not trying to sell them anything, in that traditional understanding we have of selling. We're trying to help you, and we can't help you if you don't let us. And so we have to take control of the conversation much more than we do, by letting people know that our job is to help you get out in front of problems. We can't force you to take action, but my job as your advisor is to let you know that the way that you're running things, listen, you're an entrepreneur, so you're accepting there's an element, an element of risk anyway. But on these things, yeah, you might get away with it for years, but when it goes wrong, it's going to go wrong big. And at that point, we're talking about a whole different level of cost.
So I think pricing matters. We've talked about value-based pricing in the abstract a little bit, but and I don't know if we'll have time to cover it in detail today, but I've had Sean Hardeen on the podcast, and he talks a lot about value-based pricing.
Sean's incredible.
Yeah. And so this episode will come after that. And so my audience will have a sense of that. But I think what you're talking about, though, I do think pricing matters. I think pricing is part of the way that you get people in the door. And and there's different ways to do this, right? Like, my pricing is like, it's a no-brainer. I mean, it's $20 a month to get started and sign up to be able to schedule 15-minute calls in a limited window, right? So like it's one of these things where, okay, you're already paying that for Netflix and Amazon Prime and Costco and some other memberships, right? So what's the difference to have access to a lawyer there, right? There's a lawyer, Brandon Leopoldis, who's been on the podcast. He uses the subscription model for sports law, and his market are lawyers who are athletes who are on the bench, and they're making nice six figures, but they're not like millionaire athletes. So his pricing is, it's half a Range Rover payment, or it's half your second condo payment to come on with me, right? So like, finding that right amount where for your target market, it's a no-brainer. Why shouldn't they try problem avoidance with you? So like, is that one of the solutions, is just finding a no-brainer price for your market? What do you think about that?
Right. So you are absolutely right in the price does matter. Here's my thinking on it, is that selling, business development, however you want to call it, because they are the same thing, selling and pricing are connected. They are so intertwined. And the way that they're intertwined is that the more you sell, the more business development that you do, and the more opportunities that you create, the more confident you become in your pricing. Okay. So a lot of the time, lawyers price to win work because they're not sure where the next job's going to be coming from. So they kind of look at it and they go, well, I really need this piece of work, so I'll price it lower. When you create lots of opportunities by doing lots of business development, you look at it and you go, well, actually, if all of these converted, I'd be overloaded. I'd be under-resourced. So I don't actually want to win all of these. So now I can experiment with my pricing more, because actually, when I think about it, I was pricing to win that work and I wasn't 100% happy with it. I'd like my pricing to be up here, because I think that's where I give really great value. And now, because a lot of these opportunities are coming my way, I get to talk about the value that I really bring, and people get to decide whether the price I've given them represents good value. And I know that, people like Sean and John Chisholm and Ron will have talked about, or always talk about this, and so do I. Value, price and value. If value is equal to or greater than the price, people will buy. They'll buy it every single time. And that's what becomes important, is that you're looking at it in terms of, does the price represent good value? Right. But you can't get the confidence around that unless you've got more and more opportunities. And when lawyers get very good at filling their prospect and opportunity pipeline, they start to think very differently about their pricing. And that's why it's interlinked. And what I would say is that, yes, I don't know about this whole no-brainer thing, only because I think that it should get people thinking. I think it should pinch just a little bit. But they look at it and they go, God, it represents such great value. I need to work with that lawyer. I need to work with Matthew. I don't care that the price is here or here or here, whatever it is. But I need to work with Matthew, because what he's talked to me about and how he's added value constantly in the conversation, I know that Matthew's going to give me the best results. And so for me, I think if you give somebody a price and they go, yep, Matthew, let's go ahead. If they respond that quickly, they're looking at it going, yeah, I would have paid double. I think people just need to feel it a little bit and go, yeah, but I've got to work with Matthew. He's so good at what he does.
I think you're absolutely right. And the only caveat I'm going to say is, I just don't want to compete with the other lawyers who are already charging premium prices, because that market is saturated, right? And so I'm targeting a totally different market. And so at least my approach is that.
Right. And I love that about what you're doing. Your focus is really on opening the market to a sort of demographic or a section who might have thought it was impossible to get some really good advice. Right. You're very clear about who your target market is. That's what matters. The problem that lawyers have is that too many lawyers want to be too many things to too many different people. And so they never get clarity on who their target market is. And so they never get clear on what their messaging is. What I like about what you're talking about is that you want to create more access to legal services, access to justice. I really like that, because you've talked about it and you've written about it, and we don't do enough of that. Yes, it has to work in a way that works for you, because in that kind of in that kind of space, it can be that you want to give a concierge service at a really low price, and that's impossible. But then you've got your different tiers. You've got the tiers of, well, we can start you there, and as you grow, we can offer you more and more and more. And that's brilliant. And that's where subscription really works really nicely. You can start someone off and you can grow with them. But it's about having clarity about who your target audience is. And lawyers very often don't have a real clue about who it is that they want as a client.
Absolutely. I've got 3 more questions for you, and then we'll wrap up. The first is, this is brand new. I haven't had a chance to ask a guest about this yet, because I'm just coming off of ABA Tech Show, and this came up in one of the panels I was on. My co-host Stephanie Everett, CEO of Lawyerist, brought this up, and we were having a similar conversation with the attendees at our panel, and that is this education gap, and also, like, how do you sell problem avoidance? And so it ties back into that part of our conversation, which is, we really need a got milk campaign but like got like legal services that type campaign, right? So like what are your thoughts around that kind of a thing, and like how do we even do that? Because this is a rising tides type situation, right? Where I feel like if enough of us got in on it, we could help it for everybody, but more, because lawyers were very competitive still. Like we're worried about, well, they're gonna take my clients, or so like what like I know I didn't prep you for this, but like a got milk style campaign, like what do you like when you hear that? Like what do you think about? What should we do?
Right. Right. So it's amazing, isn't it, that we look around and every lawyer is a competitor. And you think to yourself, actually, when it really comes down to it, how often are we actually competing with even the lawyer down the road? Or we're not actually that often in competition with actually, in terms of putting together pitches and things like that, we're not actually in competition that much. There are so many clients out there. There are so many businesses out there that we couldn't service if there was only one of us in the market in Illinois or Chicago. You couldn't help every single client out there in 100 lifetimes, 1,000 lifetimes, right? So there's enough space for all of us, right? Okay. So the first thing we have to do is we have to realize that we don't have competition. Why? Because you're offering something totally different to the lawyer down the road. And she's offering something totally different to the lawyer down the road from her, and so on, so on, so on. And part of what that is our approach to it, our business model, how we interact with, right. But the most important thing is that what we need to be doing is we need to be helping clients understand what it is that we do. Okay. And never before has there been an easier way to do it than through social media. Once upon a time, how are you going to let people know all the great things that you do? You'd have to take out adverts or articles in paper magazines. But how nowadays this social media has made it possible for you to just, in your own style, get information out there. So it's absolutely possible to do. And you can be talking about exactly the same thing as the lawyer down the road, and it's still going to be different because you are not that lawyer. You could literally be talking about the same subjects and it will resonate with different people because you are doing it differently. And my view is that we should all be coming together and saying, how are we going to help? How are we going to help people in society understand what we do? It's on us. It's not on anybody else. It's on us as lawyers to talk about the brilliant things that we do and how we transform people's lives, because that's what we do. We transform people's lives in a way that no one else does or can.
Echoing Ron Baker's transformation as a service is what professionals sell, right?
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
So, second to last question now, and that is it's a little bit of a softball, but I also want you to let people know where to find you when you answer this. And that is, why is it important for attorneys to build a book of business?
Oh, gosh. Right. Matthew, how long have we got? Okay. Why is it important for lawyers to build a book of business? Okay. Because without it, you don't have any work to do. You're just a really smart person sitting around twiddling your thumbs. The work can't, gone, Matthew, are the days where the work just sort of showed up on your desk, right? Now, there is a need to be out there showing people who you are and helping them. There's so much information out there. And let's be honest, a lot of it's great, but a lot of it is absolute rubbish and nonsense. And people are going down this route of thinking, oh, I can do it on my own. And the minute they go off and do it on their own, I honestly, I cringe when people say, yeah, I did it on my own. I got it I got this contract or these terms and conditions off of a document website. And I just think, oh God, like wait until somebody messes up and then you are in so much trouble. Your job as a lawyer, we've always been salespeople, by the way, Matthew. We just haven't wanted, we just look at it the wrong way. We've always had to sell what we do. Every time someone picks up the phone to us, we start talking to them. We are selling ourselves to them. It's the easiest thing in the world. Selling is actually easy. The minute you realize that what you want to do is help people, transforms every single conversation that you have. The key is overcoming the mindset, but you've got to do it because nowadays there is a lot of choice out there, and people will go to those lawyers who they trust to give them the best outcomes, to give them the best results. You've got to be there. You've got to be there educating people about how you can help them get best results, or you won't have work to do.
And if they need help doing this, Scott, how do they get in touch with you?
Good question. You did tell me to say that when I was talking about it. So yes. So listen, I'm on LinkedIn every single day. I'm on there talking about this subject. I talk about the importance of lawyers needing to sell. I talk about why lawyers need to move away from the billable hour and onto things like value pricing and subscriptions. I talk about that on LinkedIn every single day. Years ago, as I mentioned, I developed a training course called the BD Breakthrough Blueprint, and it was a 2-day course, and we've turned it into a digital course, and it is, I'm so proud of it. I'm so passionate about it because it helps lawyers get on the road to becoming rainmakers and trusted advisors. And you can find that on the LegalBalance Institute website, which is legalbalanceinstitute.thinkific.com. I'm on Instagram a little bit. I'm on TikTok a little bit. I'm told over and over again by our CEO, my wife is our CEO. She's telling me all the time, I need to do more on TikTok. And I know I need to do more on TikTok. But LinkedIn has been such an incredible platform for us that I love LinkedIn. If I'm on there, our website is legalbalance.co.uk. But I really want people to understand that anyone can be a rainmaker. Any lawyer. Do not believe it when someone tells you BD isn't for everyone, or some lawyers just want to get on and do the work. Any lawyer can do it. And that's why we developed the BD Breakthrough Blueprint, because it shows that anyone can do it. Nothing in there is complicated. Nothing in there. Anything that you learn, you can get on with day one. And that's the key to it. And the most important thing for me is that lawyers understand that anyone can be a rainmaker.
Stick around for a second when we sign off, and I'll tell you how to make it easier for you to post on TikTok. But the last question that I have for you is the reason why all my listeners stay through to the end of the show, Scott, and that is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
Oh, do you know what? I've heard this question asked and answered so many times on your podcast. Okay. And I love every single answer, but no, it's not. It's not, because it's a roll, and a sandwich is 2 slices of bread. And even in preparation for this, I checked in one of the English dictionaries, and it does not refer to a roll as being considered a sandwich. And I think going back again, I think it was Alistair who said to you, sandwiches were invented in the UK. So, but for me, I do love a hot dog. But I've never looked at a hot dog and thought, yeah, that's a nice sandwich.
Though it does make me wonder now if in the Earl of Sandwich's time, did they have sliced bread, or was everything on a roll?
That's a good question, Matthew. I'm going to have to go and look that up.
These are the questions of our day. Well, like I said, stick around for a sec. But Scott, thanks so much for coming on Law Subscribed.
Thank you so much for having me, Matthew. It's been so much fun.
And that's our show. Thanks again to 650 and Gavel for being sponsors. The best way for others to discover this show is for you to share it with somebody you think would find value from it. Follow me on LinkedIn, since that's where I'm most active on social media, and click the bell towards the top right of my profile to get notified about all of my posts about this podcast and everything else I think is valuable for you to see. To get in touch, message me on LinkedIn or email kurbis@lawsubscribed.com. All links are in the show notes. Until next time, this is Matthew Kurbis with Law Subscribed.